أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيها وهو مؤمن فأولئك كان سعيهم مشكورا.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us, and whoever desires the hereafter and strives for it with the necessary effort due for it while he's a believer, then such are the ones whose striving shall be appreciated. There's a couple of lessons that we can learn from this verse. Number one, as we all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِن, while he's a believer. That obviously belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Islam is a condition to the acceptance of our deeds. And there's an amazing phrase that he says, وَسَعَالَهَا سَعِيهَا, whoever works for it with the necessary effort due for it. So whoever gives the proper amount of effort for it, while he's a believer, his works will be appreciated. And that's really the relevant part to this discussion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing himself as appreciative. That of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gratitude.
وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Luqman, and indeed we bestowed upon Luqman wisdom. And indeed we bestowed upon Luqman wisdom, saying, give thanks to Allah. And whoever gives thanks, he gives thanks for his own self, for the benefit of his own self. And whoever is unthankful, then verily Allah is free of all wants, worthy of all praise. Again, just a few lessons from this verse. That wisdom, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes wisdom, that to be wise is to give thanks to Allah. And He mentions to us that giving thanks is for our own benefit. That we don't do this, obviously we don't benefit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes that point. Even if you're not thankful to Him, He's rich. He doesn't need anything from you at all. He's not in need of our thanks. So when we take these two introductory verses together, you come up with a really interesting reflection. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's clear that He's not in need of anything from mankind. Yet, He is appreciative of the things that we do for Him. On the other hand, we, mankind, are completely dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need Him for every single thing in our life. Yet how many of us, how many from mankind, don't appreciate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does for them? Did you catch that? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need anything from us, yet He appreciates what we do for Him. On the other side, we need Allah for everything, yet we don't appreciate Him in the proper way. When you search in the Quran for the concept of gratitude, and I literally did this. I used one of the search engines and I just searched for the word shukr and its derivatives. You find this overwhelming multitude of verses. Many of them have a very consistent theme. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about one of His favors or His bounties that He gives us. And then at the end of the verse, there's some expression or some phrase where He's encouraging us to be thankful. And this happens over and over again. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to share with you a lot of verses. So mostly you're going to just hear Abdul-Rahman reciting. And if nothing else, just listen to the recitation and think about it. And we'll just see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us of all the things that He gave us. And then pay attention to the different phrases that He uses, encouraging us to be thankful.
وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلْنَا لَكُمْ فِيهَا مَعَايِشَ قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us of the fact that we were made the dominant species on the planet. Everything else is subservient to us. And on top of that, He reminds us that all of our provisions, everything that we have, came from Him. And then this is the phrase, قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ. Yet, very few of you to give thanks. So little thanks do you give.
وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا جَنَّاتٍ مِّن نَخِيلٍ
to us fruits that we couldn't make by our own hands. These fruits that He's packaged it for us, these amazing flavors and textures, we couldn't reproduce it. And again, a different phrase, أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ. So why then don't you give thanks?
أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ خَرَجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ وَهُمْ أُلُوفٌ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ فَقَالَ لَهُمُ اللَّهُ مُوتُوا ثُمَّ أَحْيَاهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ.
Sorry about the graphic. I couldn't find anything to represent bounty, so just an interesting one for you. But again, Allah SWT mentions to us that He's full of bounty to mankind, and the phrase again, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. Yet how many of men don't give thanks?
وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْبَحْرَانِ هَذَا عَذْبٌ فُرَاتٌ سَائِغٌ شَرَابُهُ وَهَذَا مِلْحٌ أُجَاجٌ وَمِن كُلٍّ تَأْكُلُونَ لَحْمًا طَرِيًّا وَتَسْتَخْرِجُونَ حِلْيَةً تَلْبِسُونَهَا وَتَرَى الْفُلْكَ فِيهِ مَوَاخِرَ لِتَبْتَغُوا مِن فَضْلِهِ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ.
He reminds us of the two different types of seas, salt water and fresh water, and how from both of them we get fish that we can eat and decorations. And again the phrase, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you may become thankful.
أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ الْمَاءَ الَّذِي تَشْرَبُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ أَنزَلْتُمُوهُ مِنَ الْمُزْنِ أَمْ نَحْنُ الْمُنزِلُونَ لَوْ نَشَاءُ جَعَلْنَاهُ أُجَاجًا فَلَوْلَا تَشْكُرُونَ.
We experienced this last year when we had that drought in the summer. And how hard it was for us. Now a lot of the countries experiencing the same thing. And only then you realize what a mercy it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends rain from the sky. And when He reminds us about that, again, فَلَوْلَا تَشْكُرُونَ. So why then? Why don't you give thanks?
وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ يُرْسِلَ الرِّيَاحَ مُبَشِّرَاتٍ وَلِيُذِيقَكُم مِّن رَّحْمَتِهِ وَلِتَجْرِيَ الْفُلْكُ بِأَمْرِهِ وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِن فَضْلِهِ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ.
And the wind that He gave us, again, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you may become thankful.
الله الذي جعل لكم الليل لتسكنوا فيه والنهار مبصرا إن الله لذو فضل على الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون.
He made the night for us to rest and the day to work. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. Yet most of mankind don't give thanks.
والله أخرجكم من بطون أمهاتكم لا تعلمون شيئا وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة لعلكم تشكرون.
The one I think is the most powerful. From nothing, He gave us our bodies and all the faculties of life. All the faculties of life, so that the purpose is so that we can give thanks. From all of these verses, some reflections that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us these favors for free. None of us had to do anything to earn these things. Just by the very fact that He created us into our existence, all of these things are available to us. And so just a thought, that sometimes we have this attitude that I deserve better than this. That attitude almost implies that you did something to earn it in the first place. And just as a clarification, there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with asking for better. But the caution point here is to think that you actually deserve it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is rich and loves for you to ask of Him, but no doubt we didn't do anything to earn these favors in the first place. So when someone reads the Quran with an open heart, and they're paying attention to these messages, it comes forth again and again and again. It inundates you with the same thought, that he reminds you, he draws your attention to these things that you see in your life, in your existence, and he follows it up with these phrases. And you saw the various forms of the phrases. Why don't you give thanks? I did this so that you can become thankful. And so the point is clear, that of the very purposes of our life is so that we can give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so what comes next is, well, how should we do that? And so this takes us into our next very brief section, the modes of gratitude. And the first way that we express thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is verbally. And what's that verbal expression that we all know to express thanks to Allah? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. This phrase is one that we say means that all praise, all thanks, any amount of appreciation that can be given is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A phrase that we say at least 17 times a day. How? In the salah. If a person only prayed the fara'id, at a minimum he would say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen 17 times a day. I'm speaking to a crowd who's staying here at night, worshipping Allah, praying extra rak'at. Imagine how many times, just as part of the cycle of your prayers, you say this very expression. That's just an al-Fatiha, and it's mentioned in other places in the prayer. And then you look at the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and it's full with this phrase. It over and over again, the Prophet ﷺ is expressing his thanks to Allah. For example, when upon waking up, anybody know a dua or a dhikr that the Prophet ﷺ would say when he woke up? I heard like 4 different ones maybe, right? For example, Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'da ma amatana wa ilayhi nushur. After eating, Alhamdulillah, or there's longer versions, Alhamdulillah alladhi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alana min al-muslimin. So you find these throughout the Sunnah. Even there's a phrase that we say, we praise Allah in every situation. Anybody know that one? Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything. Good or bad, we owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praise and thanks. The second way that we can express thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is simply by obeying Him. Simply by obeying Him. So just this point is just one simple slide. Is it possible to be grateful to our provider, but we don't follow His rules? Recently with the young youth, we did a little demonstration. I saw one of them, I said, hey, you have very nice eyes. Can I buy them from you for $100? He was like, no. I said, how about $1,000? He said, no way. I said, how about $1 million? He said, you don't have $1 million. I said, well, that's true. Let's just play along. He said, no, what would be the point? This is like a little 11-year-old kid saying, what would be the point? If you gave me $1 million, I couldn't enjoy anything with it. And I said, so there's no amount of money that I could give you for your eyes? He said, no. And I said, and how much did you give to Allah for that? He said, no. So I said to him, then at least, how dare you then take those eyes that you value so much, that you paid nothing for, and look at something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly forbids you to look at. You see the point? And this applies to all the favors that we have. How dare you take the money that He gave you and spend it on something He forbids you to do from? And you can apply that to every single bounty that He gave us. That what type of thanks do we give to Allah when we take the very bounties and favors He gives us, and then we use those things to disobey Him? And perhaps of the highest modes of expressing our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by worshipping Him. And the most explicit evidence of this, the most explicit proof of this is what's known as sajdat al-shukr. The fact that when the Prophet ﷺ wanted to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever a situation happened where he was just overcome in his heart with a feeling of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what would he do? He would fall down prostrating to Him. He would go into an act of worship.